I'm 47 years old, and for most of my life, I played it cautious, maybe too cautious. I married in my early 20s, raised 3 children, kept a tidy home in the quiet town of Maple Falls, and lived by the unspoken rules of a predictable life. Love, for me, became routine, comfortable, familiar, but lacking spark. I never chased passion, not truly. I kept things neat, smiled when expected, listened more than I spoke, and convinced myself that stability was the same as happiness. But I was wrong. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Don't make the same mistake I did. It began on a sultry Friday afternoon in late May, the kind of day when the air hums with heat and jasmine. I was tending to my lavender garden when a text pinged from my dearest friend Marcy, who I'd known since art school back in Portland. "Can Ryan stay with you this weekend? Mom's had a fall and I have to drive to Elmsburg." I paused, squinting into the golden light filtering through the oak trees. Ryan, her son, was 19, nearly 20. I remembered him as the quiet boy who used to hide behind her legs during coffee catch-ups. Now he was grown tall, with steady eyes and a voice that echoed something deeper. Of course, I texted back. Marcy had been my anchor for years. Watching her son for a weekend felt like the least I could do. He arrived that evening with a worn backpack and a shy but warm smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Thanks for having me, Miss Evans," he said. "Call me Elise," I replied, brushing off the formality with a laugh. "You're not a kid anymore." His smile lingered a beat longer than I expected, and something unfamiliar stirred inside me. I told myself it was nothing, just the warmth of the day playing tricks. We settled into an easy rhythm. That night, I made lasagna, his favorite, he admitted with a grin, and we watched a sci-fi thriller he picked. I barely followed the plot, but he was captivated, eyes wide with wonder, leaning forward as if trying to decode the meaning behind every interstellar battle. We didn't talk much, just light chatter about his college classes, his love for plants, and whether he'd study environmental science or join his cousin's greenhouse business in Oregon. He surprised me with his quiet certainty. He wasn't the aimless teen I'd imagined. Later, I found him on the back porch, staring into the night sky. Fireflies danced over the meadow, and the warm air buzzed with crickets. The stars above Maple Falls felt brighter than usual. "You okay?" I asked, stepping onto the creaky wooden boards, barefoot. He nodded. "Sometimes I wish I could just pause everything, you know? Hold on to a moment." His words struck something deep in me, a longing I hadn't let myself feel in years. I glanced at him, his profile sharp in the moonlight. "More often than you'd think," I replied softly. He turned, his eyes meeting mine. For a breathless moment, something passed between us, a fragile understanding. Then he smiled and said goodnight. I stayed out there, beneath the stars, heart fluttering with something I didn't recognize. It wasn't desire. It was something older, deeper, like being seen for the first time in years. The next morning was calm, the scent of dew still clinging to the air. I made blueberry waffles. Ryan helped me sort through old attic boxes unprompted. We played classic vinyls, Fleetwood Mac, Carole King. He sang along, voice low and soulful. "You've got better taste than I expected," I teased, brushing dust off a record sleeve. He grinned. "Mom says I got it from your old mixtapes you used to send her." By afternoon, we were tired and sweaty. I suggested a swim in the creek behind the house. I hadn't gone there in years, but the idea felt like a tiny rebellion. I pulled on an old swimsuit, suddenly aware of every curve and line. But Ryan was already in the water, floating, eyes closed, dappled sunlight glimmering off his skin. "Jump in," he called. The water was cool and sharp against the day's heat. We splashed, talked about nothing. His favorite hiking trails, my struggles with lavender, how dragonflies hover like tiny helicopters. Then he said, "You don't laugh much." I blinked. "I laugh. Not like you mean it," he replied, not unkindly. "But when you do, it's like everything lights up." My breath caught. I brushed it off with a laugh, but his words sank in. He saw me, not as Marcy's friend, not as a mom or a woman past her prime, but as Elise. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, hearing his voice, his laugh, the way he looked at me too long. At dawn, I sipped coffee in the kitchen as soft gold lit up the fields. I told myself I was just tired, just reading too much into things. But when Ryan came down, tousled hair, sleepy eyes, my heart fluttered. "Morning," he said. "Early riser?" I asked. He nodded. We made breakfast in sync, me with the eggs, him with the toast. Our hands brushed when I passed him a plate, and a spark jumped between us. "You're always so steady," he said as we ate. "Is that your way of calling me boring?" I teased. "No," he said, eyes steady. "It's comforting. You make this place feel safe." His words cracked something open in me. I'd spent so long being the stable one, burying my own longings so others could feel secure. To be seen as someone's sanctuary? It unraveled me. A storm rolled in that afternoon. We sat in the living room, flipping through scrapbooks while thunder echoed. "That's my youngest, Lily," I said, pointing to a girl in pigtails. "She's got your smile," Ryan said warmly. "You're stronger than you think, Elise." I looked at him. He was close. Too close. The space between us shrank with every heartbeat. "You remind me of who I used to be," I whispered. "Is that good?" he asked. "It's complicated. It scares me." He reached for my hand, gently, carefully. "You don't have to be scared with me." I could have pulled away. Should have. But I didn't. I let his hand stay in mine, the moment wrapping around us like a secret. I stood suddenly, mumbling about tea, retreating to the kitchen and gripping the counter, breath uneven. He was leaving tomorrow. Marcy would be back. Life would resume. But something had changed. Something I couldn't undo. After dinner, he did the dishes while I dried. We moved in quiet rhythm, careful not to break whatever spell was hanging in the air. "Thanks," he said when we finished. "For everything." "For what?" I asked, voice tight. "For seeing me," he said. I reached out, touched his cheek. Just a brush of fingers, but the warmth of his skin was real. This wasn't about age. It was about being known, truly deeply. That night, I sat awake in the living room. Just after 2 a.m., Ryan came down the stairs. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "Me neither." He sat beside me, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said. "I know. I don't want to pretend this didn't happen." I hesitated. "We haven't done anything." "We have," he said. "You feel it too, don't you?" I looked away. "I do. But that doesn't mean we can. I'm not asking for promises. I just want to know I didn't imagine it." "You didn't," I whispered. He reached for my hand again, and this time, I didn't stop him. I leaned my head on his shoulder. We sat in silence, the candlelight flickering, breathing in sync. The wind rustled the trees outside, a quiet reminder that time never waits, even when we wish it would. The next morning, the storm was gone, and the sky was painfully blue. We said goodbye simply. A long, steady hug. "Thanks," he said again. "For what?" "For seeing me," he repeated and held my gaze one last time. As he walked to Marcy's car, I felt a pang of loss, but also something like hope. Later, I sat on the porch, the scent of lavender drifting up around me. Maybe it was just a fleeting moment. Or maybe it was a reminder that my heart could still surprise me.